Hello, everyone, and welcome to this special audio commentary track for the movie Darkman. My name is Michael Felsher. I'm a DVD producer and filmmaker, and I'm very privileged today to be here with the film's director of photography, Mr. Bill Pope. How are you, sir?
I'm good, Michael. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. It's a real honor to be here with you today. You've lent some of my favorite movies, and one of the movies that you got your start on was the one we're about to watch right here, which is Darkman. So could you talk a little bit about how this movie came into your life?
This was my first movie, actually. I was busy doing commercials and music videos. I'd come out of the music video world. And I got a phone call one day from Sam who said, I want you to come by and interview for this job. And I said, I don't have time. It's every time I go in for an interview, they always say, what's your first movie? And I go, well, I don't have a first movie. So it became this catch-22. Sam had called his buddies, the Coens, and their cinematographer, Barry Sonnenfeld, and said, who should I get to shoot this? Because they wouldn't let me use the guy that I've been shooting with. This is a studio movie, so they wouldn't let him use anybody. That's studio logic. And so Barry said, get Pope. Barry and I had gone to film school together, and Barry and I had worked together all through film school, and so he said, get Pope, and that was good enough for Sam. And I turned him down. He called me back the next day and said, no, I'm serious. I want you to come in for an interview. And I said, I'm busy. I don't have time for this. And he said, you know what? Just come in, and if you can articulate a single sentence, I'll hire you. And I said, all right. Under those circumstances, I'll come in. And he asked me the trick questions, the Sam trick questions. So, if I told you exactly what to do, told you exactly where to put a light, where to put the camera, what lens to put it on, how high, where to pan, what would you say to me? I'd say, well, let's go. He said, all right, you're hired. That's Ted right there in the middle.
Yep.
Ted Raimi. Sam could always depend upon Ted to do the slow motion single frame acting because they grew up making movies in their backyard. This is an old warehouse down in San Pedro that doesn't exist anymore. We shot in it thousands of times. It was really beautiful. The sunlight would pour in those windows at the right time of day.
I was going to ask if that. I had a feeling this probably didn't exist anymore.
No, all these are gone. You can look at those shots later of this is Sam. Push.
Did you go back and watch either of the Evil Dead movies before doing Darkman?
No. I don't think I'd even seen Evil Dead 1 before I shot this. I'd seen Evil Dead 2 in the theaters, but I had missed Evil Dead 1.
So you had a little idea of what to expect in terms of the visual style that Sam was going to be going for.
Yeah. Also, it was sort of... I mean, Barry and I had made a lot of student movies together, and it was in the air. We were aware of Sam as a filmmaker. Certainly the Coens took their early style from Sam. Mm-hmm. They'd worked for him as editors, and they were roommates over in Silver Lake. And they still, I think, pass each other the drafts of each other's scripts. They do secret drafts of each other's scripts. So it was the style was sort of in the air at the time. And we were always trying to move the camera with wide-angle lenses in order to give it that wow effect. Just some visceral delight. And, let's swing that lamp. Let's do anything to make it come alive. And Sam has this super great, almost unconscious dream imagery that he does. It seems like it's logical, but it's only logical in a dream sense.
Mm-hmm. And also, this is a very comic book flavored film, obviously, and it's, Sam has a professed love for comic books, as evidenced by the Spider-Man films. Was it challenging to create essentially his own comic book universe, since this wasn't based on an existing comic? This was something brand new.
Yeah, in those earlier days, you couldn't afford a comic, and they weren't going to give it to you.
Right.
So we made a comic. We made Darkman. And just like the Wachowskis later made Neo. You know, it's like you couldn't afford a comic, so you made your own. But this was entirely comic book sensibility. I was deeply into comics. I had a massive comic book collection and read comics all the time. I don't much anymore, but I did in those days. And Barry and I in film school made Superman before the original Supermans came out.
Oh, really?
We actually made, as Barry's senior project, we made Superman, an adult version of Superman. I don't mean adult in the, you know, it wasn't pornographic or anything, but he had adult problems. You know, he had problems with girls, and nobody believed in him anymore, and he was boring, and you know, he had anxiety problems.
It certainly sounds like a very unique take on the character. I think I would have liked to have seen that. Before the movie gets kind of going here, I wanted to just ask a quick question. Who was your primary influence as a cinematographer? I mean, was it a person, or was it a film, or what basically was the impetus for you to become interested in cinematography? Was it a filmmaker, or was it in fact actually just a particular film that made you interested in it? Yes, honestly, I mean, I was in the early '70s in architecture school, but I was in the Cinema Society of University of Virginia, and it's a wonderful life. Frank Capra had been forgotten at the time. Look at Liam. This was, I think, Liam's first movie. He had done a lot of supporting roles at this point in some other smaller pictures, but this was like his first big leading role. Liam came on, and he or his agent came on, or his manager came in the first day and said Liam, in order to stay in the role, he was very serious about it. He wanted to be referred to throughout the movie, even off the set, as Darkman. So you will refer to him as Darkman. And he said this to the whole crew, and we all went, okay. Really? And Sam, of course, he was like, right. So, hey, Darkman, can I get you a cup of coffee? Hey, Darkman, I'm going to go out for dinner today. You want to, it's like he totally made fun of him. And then a couple of days later, Liam came by and said, you know what, I don't want to be called Darkman anymore. No, I guess that didn't fly very well. But Liam was a serious actor, and he brought a lot of weight to this cartoon that we were making. He believed it. Well, that's hard to, I mean, you still have to find gravitas in the absurd. And it's hard, it's not easy for a lot of actors to do. You have to believe. You have to believe in the material. You have to believe in the director. You have to believe in Sam. And Sam was always serious. He's a ultimate filmmaker. He's living and breathing it. He's thinking about every piece of the mise en scène. He's thinking about every piece of art direction, every piece of everywhere the camera goes. And he does tell you where they'll put the lights and where the camera goes and when to pan and what exactly the shot is. He'll tell you exactly what that shot's going to be. Did you guys have a lot of time before the production began to sort of plan out some shots and go over just sort of the basic look you were going for, or were you thrust into it pretty quickly? I'm sure on that budget we went into it pretty fast, but Sam draws little stick figure storyboards, and we had those to go on, and I completely got his sensibility from the word go. It's like that's an optical that thing in the foreground doesn't exist. That's really? Old-fashioned optical. I would never have guessed. See, sometimes the old tricks still hold up. You need someone to call it out to you to actually tell you that was a special effect you just saw. We did a lot of in-camera stuff, but that wasn't. We did foreground miniatures and stuff in Army of Darkness. Oh, that's right. Yeah, that was just a couple years after this. And this is both this and Army of Darkness were. This film was the year before T2 and 2 years before Jurassic Park, so that's totally pre-CGI. So you still were using a lot of old school techniques back then. Oh yeah, I mean, the lighting of these blue screens took forever. It was a big deal. We had so much light on one blue screen in Colin Friel's office that we set off the fire alarms. Oh, really? We had to abandon the building. have Frances McDormand here. What are your memories of working with Frances?
Fran was always, she's super game. She was a really lovely person. And she, you know, had been dating, oh God, I can't remember the whole story. I don't think she was dating Joel yet, but she was a member of that crowd that Sam hung out with, the Coens, and Holly Hunter and Fran were best friends. And somewhere in there, they all hung out in Silver Lake, and Sam lived in this old hunting lodge, and they all lived in there and hung out. And that's where they were all hanging out when I first got to know them.
And Fran's career was taken off at this point. She was just coming off of an Oscar nomination for Mississippi Burning, I believe.
She was, actually. And she just agreed to this. She didn't feel like she was right for the role, and I think that was to be my interpretation. But she was willing, as a friend, to take it on for Sam. And it made Sam feel really good.
So the film was shot in and around the Los Angeles area. Did you guys have a practical studio set up at all for this?
We had a warehouse downtown that we turned into his lair.
Okay.
I don't know that we ever had a studio that we built. We always worked in old warehouses downtown. It was pretty low budget, this movie.
Mm-hmm.
I think 12 million, maybe 10 million.
Well, for Sam, this was sort of a big jump up because I don't think he'd even worked with anything over 3 or 4 at that point.
Oh, probably. I think the most he'd worked with up to that point was 300,000. It was a big deal for him, and you can see us working. And for me, it's my first movie, so it's a massive learning curve here.
Mr. Strack? I've been going over some documents, and
Now, the Strack's office set is quite a remarkable set, and this was all obviously designed for the film. What were the challenges in working in this particular set?
There's a huge window, all of which had to have blue screen outside, and you can see some comps that are really rough, old school comps. And because look at Fran, she's so good. Because we were working. Let's see when we're avoiding the window now. We're completely avoiding that window in camera stuff.
If you didn't have to show it, you weren't going to show it, basically.
Yeah, it cost money to show it. But because we were doing this, I was working with an old Panavision camera, which had a fixed eyepiece. It was the Panavision version of a visual effects camera. It had super great registration. I can't remember what it's called now. But you can see how elaborate these moves are with Sam. This is all one shot here. That last one was one shot. And to dolly around and have a fixed eyepiece, boom up and down, it really was hard on me, I got to tell you. And Sam is hilarious as a director. He's constantly making fun of us. We laughed all the time. You never stop laughing on a Sam set. When you finally see the movie and it's got, terror in it and atmosphere, you go, what? But as you're operating the camera with Sam, sometimes he'll come up and pinch you and say, don't mess up, buddy, don't mess up. He'll whisper that in your ear. I'm watching you, buddy.
Well, yeah, many actors have told tales of Sam throwing things at them off camera.
Oh, yeah.
Bruce Campbell getting poked with a stick relentlessly Sam seems to love to torture the people he works with.
He wants to get a real reaction out of it, and he'll sing, while you're dollying forward. He'll sing the tunes that will be on the track later. Dun 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 dun, and bum 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 bum. And the actors, I'm going, Sam, we're gonna have to dub this. That's all right. It helps him out. He'll talk to him, tell him what to do in the middle of the take.
So as Peyton Westlake is discovering here that the dark is the key to making his replacement skin work, it brings up the subject that you had to film so much of this movie in the dark. What was it like working with very minimal lighting in a lot of these sequences?
Well, I can just feel this is movie dark. Let's turn out the lights, but still be able to see everything
Yeah.
and be able to shoot it from all angles. And this is what Sam calls a Captain Kirk.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Give me a Captain Kirk on this one, Bill. It's silly. And the crazy thing is, I know what he's talking about.
Oh yeah, no, it was like the shots from that. I always remember the episode "The Enemy Within." They throw the light underneath him to show the evil Captain Kirk.
Yeah.
You know.
He knew every convention in the horror sci-fi genres.
Well, how important is that shorthand between you and a director to be able to understand, just with a couple of things on the quick, what he's trying to go for?
Ollie. It's really super helpful. At somewhere in the middle of this movie, like that's a POV, and this is all planned out. It's very, if you go back and look at the hospital sequence in Spider-Man 2, it's probably very similar. When I saw Spider-Man, I was in another country and I saw Spider-Man on the screen. I go, I called Sam up. I said, "You just managed to remake Darkman with a big budget." He said, "Yeah, I used the same scenes and everything. Nobody's ever going to notice." Yeah, all right.
Well, the hospital scene in Spider-Man 2 definitely reminded me. I was like, "Oh my God, this is old school Sam right here."
Yeah, it really is. We had a great deal of fun. That was a so-called test that we shot. We said, we need to test this stuff. They wouldn't let us put it in the schedule. So we shot that scene as a test, and of course, we always knew it was going to be in the movie. Sam's really funny ways of controlling the studio are always impressive. Heck, I love that. Lean in, lean out. In Darkman, for instance, he already knew he would have the dailies sent to we always had to send our dailies to the studio at the end of the day. And Sam would have the editor. He had an editor on, at this point even, who would lop off the bad parts of the scenes, put the slates on, only send them the take that he wanted to send them, and in the order that they were going to be in the movie. So what they saw, they were looking at what they thought were dailies, but they were really looking at a pre-cut. And we always got notes back from Universal saying, "These are the best dailies we've ever seen. Why doesn't everybody do this?" And Sam was just, controlling his crowd. He always is aware of what the audience is thinking. And in those days, studio executives weren't savvy like they are now. This was the period after the moguls and before the MBAs took control. These guys were, I don't know where they came from, but I remember a Universal executive coming down the set on this one and saying, "Bill, I got some complaints about this. It's like all your sets are out of focus." And I set him on the dolly. I showed him how lenses work. When you focus on the actor in the foreground, the background's out of focus.
Right.
He said, "I don't care. I paid a fortune for these sets. I want it all in focus." All right.
How do you argue with something like that?
You don't. You just say, "Yeah, okay," and then you go ahead and do what you were doing because it's impossible. I can't keep the.
I mean, there's no. You can't come back with anything to that other than that's the most idiotic thing I've ever heard.
You just have to. They need to have the input. They need to have something to say. So let them have something to say. The Dippy Bird.
Yep.
Let's bring in the Dippy Bird.
Only Sam can make a Dippy Bird seem threatening and foreboding.
I cannot. This is downtown someplace. It doesn't exist anymore either. It's like a trip down L.A. memory lane here.
Well, you're dooming my hopes for a location tour of Darkman here. They're all gone now. Nothing's left.
Especially the factory at the end that blows up. That's all.
I gotta imagine that's.
We shot in that right before they tore it down.
Oh. Yeah, I shot on a movie set once where the set they were literally tearing down the set around us as we were there.
Oh yeah.
And then like one day after we were gone, they demoed the building that we were in. And then here's the massive explosion. Had you ever dealt with pyrotechnics before in terms of filming them?
Not on this scale, no. I mean, little bitty things. As a camera assistant, yes, I've been through many things. Somewhere in here, I think it's right here. This is our big optical. But on that scene where she's staring at the explosion, that's Sam throwing all the flaming logs through the frame.
Of course, because if there's any debris to be had, he seems to always want a piece of it. And I've seen that.
Mush mush, he calls it. We need more mush mush. I need some foreground mush mush.
So you got your start. You said you worked with Roger Corman in the beginning. How did you get working with Roger? I mean, it's amazing how many people I've talked to did time over at the studio with him for some amount of time.
You really were doing time, let me tell you. It was like being in prison. You were just doing crappy movies that made you question ever being in the film business in the first place. After a couple of years of working for Corman, I applied to film school. I applied to law school.
Really?
It's like, I gotta get out of here. This is crazy business.
So you don't have the rose-colored memories of the place that some other people do.
No. I mean, it was fun because everybody was starting out the same way, and you got to try things. But you were so busy with the bottom line, you're so busy making crap, basically, that it's like there has to be something else. And it wasn't until you couldn't breathe. You were just constantly making low-budget malarkey.
Well, I mean, his studio was a low-budget factory back then. So much stuff.
This is a famous actress.
Yeah, that's Jenny Agutter. She's actually uncredited in the movie, but she dates back to the Railway Children, and she did Child's Play 2, I remember her from, but she was probably most famous in the genre for American Werewolf in London, which, it's funny I should bring that up because...
That's John Landis.
Yep. And because Sam had made cameos in his movies as well.
Yeah. John's always game. He's good friends with Edgar Wright now. He's a
Oh, that's right. He directed Simon in Burke and Hare. I just love. I don't know how. It's not the most doctorly thing to do. Just stick a pin in somebody. Just be like, see, he's fine. He's dead. What are you gonna do?
He can't feel a thing.
Yeah.
That's Ivan Raimi on the right there.
Oh, is that Ivan?
Yeah, on the far right.
Okay.
Who actually is a doctor.
Yes, he's an emergency room doc. He lives not too far from me, actually.
It's funny.
Up here in the Detroit area.
Ivan and Sam always do drafts of every one of their scripts, if not the original. They end up doing the final.
So what scenes what was for you the biggest challenge in this film, just outside of the fact that it was your first movie with at all as a DP, and also working with Sam and coming into a situation where you have to do a lot of action on a low budget, very little time? Was it the studio the most difficult aspect of this, working and having the sort of interference with them?
The studio in the beginning was really, they did not want me to do it because I was no more experienced than the last guy. Mm-hmm. But after a couple of days dailies, they sort of laid off of us. But they didn't want Sam to do Sam's vision, really. You got a little piece of it right there. When you went inside Liam's eye.
Right.
We used to build entire worlds inside Liam's head. And they cut all that stuff out. That just wasn't current, They wanted more explosions. Batman came out sometime around here.
It was the year before this, yeah.
And they said, give us more explosions, give us more of this, whatever movie came out, that's what they wanted. So we had less of David Lynch going on, Samisms, and more explosives. We had to go back and reshoot some things. This is an alley downtown, which does exist. We flooded this place with the rain, and rats poured out like crazy.
Ugh.
The gaffer, who has a complete fear of rats, got on a condor, went up in the air, wouldn't come down for the whole night.
Oh, man.
And Liam, totally game. You're lying down in that crap and that rat.
Yeah, I can't imagine that water being very healthy.
Oh my God.
God, it's just.
This wasn't cleaned up downtown in those days. People lived in that alley. Liam's just completely game.
So yeah, I mean, I've heard a lot of stories about scenes that were cut out of the film. That there was a lot of scenes that just that Universal going, we don't understand this. We don't understand what you're trying to do here. So there were a lot more sequences sort of inside, the fractured mind of Peyton Westlake, as it was.
Yeah. Which really made it to me. That's what I loved about Sam. Like I'm saying, that dreamscape, that intuitional dreamscape that he could make. We went inside Liam's head, and we made Liam into a puppet, and he was controlled, and he had other people were represented by puppets, and it was just very, I call it David Lynch, but it's pure Sam as well. It's like there were in the 80s these intuitive filmmakers who could take you to places that you'd never been before, and Sam was one of them. And the studio just did not want that. They wanted a high-budget action movie with somebody that they could make a franchise out of, I guess.
It's a shame that stuff didn't make it in, because those are actually the little touches that really help set this movie apart from a movie like Batman.
Right. Yeah, well, this is a movie by Sam.
Right, exactly. And he's going to have his own take on this, which is not going to be what Tim Burton or anyone else does. So it's going to be...
I'm sure Burton is also a dreamer. He was.
Oh, sure.
He ran up against the same sort of obstacles, trying to do his, unique outlook on the world. Every now and then he lets loose with the scissor hands.
Well, like, he could only do Edward Scissorhands after he'd reached a point where the studios would, he'd done enough good for them,
right,
that they could leave him pretty much alone.
This is a warehouse downtown next to the bag company, Southwest Bag Company. What was that? It was like a sprocket missing there.
How closely do you have to work, I mean, in a situation like this with the production designer, who in this case was Randy Sir?
Oh, very close. We all worked really closely. Sam, we're all in one big room in the beginning, and you're talking all the time. And it wasn't a big crew that you had. You're just you talk about every aspect of it. Every shot's talked about. Yeah, you have to be ready, because you're going to shoot a lot of shots in a day. We did 19 setups a day for 119 days. That's a massive amount of work.
It is a lot of. I mean, that's especially on a film that's got as many different camera angles and setups as this does.
Yeah, they're all very specific. They're very Sammed.
Very Sammed. That's a good way to put it.
It's not, let's do rehearsal and find this angle. We would typically go on the set, the two of us, block it out, put the marks down, and then bring the actors in and say, you're going to do this. Something which Sam got totally away from later when he grew more respect for actors. That's a xenon pouring through a hole in the ceiling. I think I took the air conditioners off the ceiling and poked them right through the ceiling. That's the ceiling of the warehouse.
Oh man,
That's all the room we
I was
have.
going to ask about this. Okay, it doesn't look very safe anyway, but I have to believe that this location was kind of dicey at times.
Completely. That cat, we established Liam with this cat.
Mm-hmm.
It becomes his pet, and we blew up the warehouse at the very end of the movie. The bad guys blew up Liam's warehouse.
Yeah.
And the studio said, you got to go back and shoot that cat climbing out a window. People are going to wonder where that cat is. I'm like, what? And we did. We had to go back and shoot a shot of the cat. You can kill anybody. You can blow up people. You can cut their fingers off. But you can't kill a cat.
No, you kill a cat, then no one's going to ever watch this movie. I mean, that's just...
I'm the same way. I'll watch a movie and say, why did they kill the dog? What are you talking about? You can't kill a dog. I read a script the other day that somebody sent me, and they shoot a baby. And I'm like, I can't do this script.
Well, that's...
It's like, forget it. It's like, yeah, but we can cut that part out. I don't care. You wrote killing a baby. I'm not going to work with you. It's not going to happen.
Yeah. Well, I like to know that you have Stan's like, nah, I won't kill it. I'll maybe imply that a cat died, but I'm not going to kill a baby.
Good Lord. It's like, you can do anything for shock value, but geez.
Now, you've worked with Sam in essentially two different phases of his career. I mean, you worked with him on Darkman and Army of Darkness, and then later on, reteamed with him for the Spider-Man sequels. And I'm curious, did Sam's way of working with people, not only the actors, but the crew as well, did it change at all between when you worked with him on, say, Army of Darkness in 91 or 92, and then later on almost 10 years later, for Spider-Man 2? Because obviously we're talking a larger budget, a much bigger scale of film, and also a director who's 10 years down the line had gone through some ups and downs in his career and had maybe finally gotten the chance to sort of make some really big pictures that he'd always dreamed of making. But was he still essentially the same guy, or was there a maturity there, or something you'd notice that he had changed as a result of getting Spider-Man, which had to have been an enormous turning point for him in a number of ways, not just professionally?
I think he was called in along with every director in the world to pitch Spider-Man, and fortunately, Sony had a sensibility. Sony had a vision, and they recognized that Sam was the guy to do it. It wasn't you didn't hire some big Hollywood guy to come in there and flash it up. You hired a guy who understood Spider-Man, and those sequences in Spider-Man in which Tobey finds his powers and so forth, those are lovely, lovely things. And you can see Sam as well learning how to deal with actors, learning how to trust them and mine them for their true worth, to take what's offered. Sam loves it when you contribute. He'll take a contribution from anybody on the set. He's super funny about it. I will constantly say, Sam, what do you think about doing something like this? And he'll say, Bill, buddy, that's just a terrible idea. Terrible idea. I'm surprised you would even offer such a thing. And he'd turn to the crew and say, "Listen up, everybody! I got this great idea." And he'd say exactly what you just told him, and he'd turn to Ray and say, "See, that's how it works, buddy." And he'd do it. Everybody in the room knew exactly what he's doing, and we were all laughing, and he was just all playing Sam's jokes. He loves to take credit for everything, and he's like, every time he walks by the craft service table, he says, "I was up all night cooking this stuff for you guys. What do you think?" He's like he's just a complete cornball and a pleasure to work with all the time. You can't take him seriously, but you always put your trust in him because he knows what the hell he's doing. And one day we'll do it again. It's hard. Everybody's working, and you're on different countries now, and it's hard to hook up again.
I have to know whether you've come to a decision regarding the Belisarius memorandum.
This is the first day of filming. This is the Wilshire E. Bell Theater over on Wilshire Boulevard. And we did this as one shot, but I think Sam cut it up, which is a typical Sam thing. We did it as a two-shot, which picks up, comes to this point, followed them around,
But there is something that eases the symptoms.
walks up to the dance floor. This is all one shot. And now we're on the Perfilog Dancer Cam. Oh no, this is a regular see, he cut it up. We did a sequence where we moved around with them. The thing about Sam, which always used to tickle me, was we'd do these huge shots, and then he'd cut them up.
You go through all the trouble of doing one big long take, and
yeah, you have to move mountains in order to make the shot, and you'd see it later, it'd be cut up. Sam would say, "Are you mad about it, Bill?" "Oh, not at all. Whatever makes the best movie, Sam."
there's another one of his.
Yeah, Liam's pissed off.
I mean, how many elements are in here? I mean, did you do any of the shock effects and sort of the zoom pans on the set while you were shooting, or was that all saved for later?
We all did it later.
Later, yeah.
Little stunt. Whip pans. In I think on this movie, or maybe on Army of Darkness, I came to Sam at one point and I did a catalog. I cataloged all of his shots, A through Z, Sam Raimi shots. And I said, just from now on, Sam, just call out the letter. And I still use those letters to designate shots. My crew knows it. I will say, I'm going to do an ascending B, and they'll just set it up. I'm going to do a straight B with a whip pan, with a whip at the end. This is 4 frames a second. This is Ted acting at 4 frames a second.
Yeah, it looks a lot more dangerous than it really was, I hope.
I think it's Ivar in Hollywood. Another 4-second frame acting thing was that's a sushi place on Hollywood and Vine now. That Swank sushi place. It was a bad deli at the time.
So that's still there, at least. To some degree. At least the building is.
The building's still there. I think it's a Philippe Stark sushi place now. God only knows where Liam is. Liam could be in another place entirely. Pan down to briefcase. Get the hand. Look how well it's thought out.
Yeah, the transitions from there's the cat that must not die.
Yeah.
But the transition from the shot, the still photo back pulls in and
to another still photo.
Yeah.
It's really he's completely meticulous. It's a pleasure to work with somebody who thinks it out like that.
With Sam being the first director you worked with as a DP, did that sort of spoil you in a way for working with people in the future, or did it encourage you to sort of seek out people like him to work with?
Sometimes when you're given a gift right off the bat, you don't know what you're given. Mm-hmm. And it took me years to realize it. I've encountered people as prepared as that since. People who have a vision like as complete as Sam's. But I was spoiled and didn't know it. But there are other people who work differently. I've worked with directors who are very theatrical. You show up on the set and you figure it out. You do a rehearsal, you do a blocking, and you and the actors and the director figure out how we're going to shoot it for the day, which is a great pleasure to work. Mm-hmm. Great, pleasant way to work. It's very theatrical and inspired. You're working on your feet. You're not preconceiving. Sam is a combo of the two. He preconceives, but he's also open all the time. You can never conceive of something completely. The physical world will fool you all the time. You'll get there and you go, the camera just doesn't do what we thought it was going to be able to do.
Right.
There's a Groucho where Liam has to get shorter as he walks forward, otherwise he goes out of the frame.
Also, he's actually kind of...
He's Grouchoing
down. Grouchoing down.
The master of all these fake moves is, of course, Bruce Campbell.
Oh, well, yeah. In fact, Bruce can be heard as a scream and various other people yelling in the background, I think about 100 times during the course of this movie. You can recognize it sometimes I was like, oh, that's Bruce. That's Bruce just died. Okay. Something just happened.
A little milk of magnesia on his...
That's Nicholas Worth, who sadly is not with us anymore.
He was a good actor.
He was a really good actor. He did a lot of horror roles, a lot of cult roles, and was very often cast as an imposing sort of
lovely
thug.
Man.
But he was really good.
I seem to remember a single shot scene here with handheld. I seem to remember hitting 17 marks, but I can't. This is not it. Maybe it's when they come back in. And this is there's definitely a scene here where somebody jumps out the window, of an 8-story window.
But he gets thrown out. Durant throws him out to his death later. He lands on a car.
That was a very frightening scene to shoot. There it is. Ernie's Best Deli. That's now the sushi place.
I guess it wasn't the best deli after all. This is, and it was a unique challenge for some of these actors to play Darkman, imitating the characters they're already playing.
Yeah, the actors really love that sort of thing.
Hey, Durant wants to know where Rick is. He is hot. I mean,
That's the Taft building across the street.
don't ask me why.
Right to your, as you're looking out the window to your right would be the W
You
Hotel.
know where the hell Rick is?
That would be the W Hotel now, right there.
Oh, okay. Behind Paulie there, yeah. And Paulie is played by the great Nicholas Worth, who passed away in 2007 and appeared in countless TV and movie projects, but I always remember him from films like Don't Answer the Phone and Wes Craven's Swamp Thing. Really talented guy.
Here's the handheld scene. This is all one
Oh,
shot.
when they come in
handheld.
and take care
Yeah.
of business.
Yeah. We just decided to try it all as one shot. It's a lot of fun.
Paulie, we've been very concerned about you.
Hey, Mr. Durant. I must have overslept. I'm sorry. I guess I missed the pickup, huh?
Where's the money, Paulie?
What money? I didn't make the pickup.
It's a very interesting mix you have of handheld, very fluid crane shots. I mean, there's every sort of camera technique in the bag is introduced in here. Was it fun for you to sort of mix it up this much?
It was a great deal of fun. We I think on day 55, I want to say somewhere way in the thing, my camera assistant turned to me and said, "Hey, you know, this is the first time we're on a tripod." And in other words, it's the first time we weren't dollying, moving, craning, doing something super elaborate. I said, "Yeah, we're on a tripod, but we're doing a 360-degree pan where we got to walk all the way around the camera. So it's not exactly a simple shot." Sam doesn't have simple shots.
No.
And that's just, there it is.
Yep.
The stuntman scared the hell out of me on this one.
It's a huge fall.
Well, he also, we would set up all these cameras, and the stuntman was inside, and that's Sam right there. Did
Sam.
you see Sam walk by? And the stuntman was inside, and I heard him talking on the radio. I said, you know, please give me warning when you're going to come out. And I heard him breathing on the radio, and I turned to everybody. I said, everybody roll cameras now. Roll all 8 cameras. And he just ran through and jumped out the window without any warning whatsoever. And if we weren't rolling, we wouldn't have had it at all.
Really?
Yeah. He was so amped up and ready to go.
He just did it.
He just did it.
Wow. That would have been, would have been even possible to redo it?
I don't know. I mean, we were on such a shoestring.
God, what have I become? What have I become?
He's an early optical man. You can see how bad those edges look. This would be in camera probably. Stock footage bought somewhere.
Please hold.
Liam Neeson spends most of the film, obviously, either covered in bandages or later on in the full stage Darkman makeup. And I working with characters who are in makeup or involving a lot of prosthetics, what are the challenges in filming this stuff? Because obviously, even on a good day, even the best makeup can look like the cheapest Halloween mask.
It's always a collaboration between everybody. You set up your shot. You got to first you show up. You got to block your shot with Sam. There's our cat.
Yep.
And you've got to talk about it. You got to educate the actors on it. You got to agree on everything. This was a great shot, actually, down that arm of the platform. And then you've got to practice it, rehearse it. Practice it, Sam would say. Sam doesn't call it rehearsal. Let's practice. And Liam just giving it his all. And then you got to do, you know, right before you go, you got to really look at the makeup and everything and say, you know, it's falling apart here, it's falling apart there. You got to do a last-minute tweak of everything. Dolly forward. So the camera had to be in an underwater housing in order to shoot that last shot. You know, we dolly forward into the stream of water. The shot going down that little arm, we're into a close-up of Liam. If you'll notice, the arm that the camera's on is too narrow for a camera, so we had to build a little plank with wheels, and only the dolly grip is up there, and the camera system's working with a remote control focus, and we just let the camera go down this thing that we'd made, and the dolly grip reached out and grabbed it at the last minute in a perfect close-up of Liam. So all those marks had to be hit. It's like you think it's just a simple little... For Sam, it's just like a grace note. That's a 3-second piece of film. But it takes an enormous amount of work. Bring the fire in.
Yeah, there's a lot of... I mean, there's so many elements just in that 1 3-minute stretch of film there that have to... You have to figure out how to plan all that stuff and make it work. And you don't have the time to do it.
That's why, anything as complicated as this, you gotta think about it before. And these are not movies that you walk on and you ad-lib.
No. I would imagine that would be almost impossible to do. At least certainly to the degree that Sam would require.
The thrills, though, in a movie like this are greater. The physical rushes that you get out of a movie like this, an action movie, are greater than the physical rushes you get out of a more theatrical movie.
Mm-hmm.
You get less of a touch of humanity in a movie like this than in a theatrical movie.
Sure. I mean, there's a very arch tone to this thing. There's a very pitched comic book flavor. It's based in the real world, but not really. I mean, there's obviously going to be, and that's another thing. I mean, when you're filming scenes just like this, like in a funeral, you still have to have it match up to what the world that you've created in the other scenes. So that has to also be something of a challenge.
Very dreamy. Got a little net on the back of the lens, I think. You can see why Spielberg once thought of Liam as his Abraham Lincoln.
Mm-hmm.
Look at that. He looks just like Abe Lincoln.
Yeah, you do have sort of a diffusion thing. It's almost convincing you this could be a dream.
Yeah. Well, it's a misdirect. Sam loves misdirecting the audience. It's just his way. Sam is always aware of where the audience is and what they're thinking about.
Mm-hmm.
So misdirection is only his ability to control that audience.
Were there any big scenes in the final film that were left out that you remember shooting that were as a result of the studio kind of wanting to streamline the picture and kind of shoehorn it into a Batman sort of mode or something to that effect?
Well, like I say, all the dream stuff was cut out.
Mm-hmm.
There'd probably be about 10 minutes of the movie. And there was another plot twist that was cut out, probably by Sam, which involved the people behind Colin Friel even. There were people behind him. There was a consortium of people behind him even. So the evil went deeper and larger. And all that was cut out. That was some of the early stuff we shot as well.
Mm.
And as the movie got more and more streamlined, I think it was probably cut out while we were shooting it. We did, like I say, we had this several sequences about the guys behind Colin Friel. I know one of the early things we shot was on a golf course in a big mansion, I want to say out in Calabasas. And we had a big giant table and windows looking over a golf course. And Sam was very adamant that he be able to see inside and the golf course outside. And we had probably our only disagreement ever. And I was like, that's so old school, 1945, that the exposure outside is the same as inside. The outside should be more overexposed than the inside, even just a couple stops. And I think we were using 100 ASA film on this thing, really slow. And I shot it, and Sam was like, it's passable. He thought that the outside was too overexposed, and the studio hated it. They're like, how come we can't see every single thing that's going on outside? So, well, you can see it's a golf course, and you can see it's a wealthy place, and you can see the trees are beautiful, and you can see the inside. And fortunately, all that was cut out. That was a big to-do in the beginning. I learned a lot. just do what the director tells you to do.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting that he would even go so far as to have a threat behind the threat.
Yeah.
But I can see maybe from a story standpoint why he decided not to include that.
It was just a big, we just didn't need the screen time. It was the shots that we were doing. It's hard to, when you're doing a storyboard, to know how long a shot takes up screen time or how long the acting takes up or how long it takes to say the dialogue. You can go through the script with a script supervisor and time it out, but you don't have all the Sam-isms. You don't have all these shots. You don't have all the grace notes. And, I think the script for Army of Darkness was about 80 pages long. The script for this movie was probably 100. Mm-hmm. And just because Sam has so much direction of the camera that it takes up a lot more time than most people's stuff.
Right.
You can't predict how long things are. And he suddenly ended up with too much movie. So
right.
he just chucked some of it early. And saving my butt in the meantime.
Because I seem to also recall hearing about a scene where Colin Friel's character takes all his clothes off and rides around on a bed of coins naked.
Oh yeah, that was fun. Yeah, he was happy. He was happy to be rolling in the money.
And apparently they cut it because they said it made the people uncomfortable with his character, which I think was kind of the point.
Exactly.
It's like, well, then it did its job.
This was, people didn't do this thing. Do the security camera.
Oh yeah, now it's already a cliche.
Oh yeah. It doesn't take long to become a cliche, but
yeah, but back in 1990, no.
We were like, we're gonna shoot it from the security camera. A dolly move on a process vehicle. Chinatown scene.
So did you actually shoot this in Chinatown?
Yeah.
Okay, so this was Brett.
We were. I got here this day. We have a day exterior and a bit of a night to shoot on these days. And I was completely unconscious most of the time. I was working my butt off. And I showed up at, 8 o'clock in the morning here, and the call was noon. And I was like, what an idiot. What kind of person doesn't even read the call sheet? I can't even, why am I here this early? No one else would make that mistake. And I sat down on a park bench, and then I hear, hey, buddy, where is everybody? And Sam walked up and said, I was like, Sam, you and I need to learn how to read the call sheet.
That's funny. With the exception of the DP and the director, everybody got the call sheet, right? So that's always good.
We went out and had a nice lunch.
What are your memories of Larry Drake, of working with him? This was he was riding really high at the time on LA Law in a very different role as Benny, who's a mentally challenged man. But here he is playing this very, very cold and ruthless villain. What was Larry like?
He was a gem. Literally all the actors are complete gems. Sam is enough of a director to know not to hire someone who can't put up with his style. He's going to let them do what they do and respect it. Mm-hmm. And he's not going to get in their soup much. But they need to respect that his soup is his soup. They're going to have to. They're going to have to hit these marks. They're going to have to do these crazy shots, in which physical logic, is often completely ignored. Why would he walk over and sit in that chair? Just because he looks good in this shot. That's why.
Right.
Why would he wait to click that thing? Because you have to wait for the whip pan. That's why. It's very mannerist filmmaking. Fake arm.
Was there any talk? When you went to do Spider-Man 2 with him, you did that in Anamorphic, 2:3:5 to 1.
Yes.
Was there any talk about doing this film in that ratio, or was it always going to be flat?
This was always flat. I don't know why.
Because Sam at this point hadn't shot an anamorphic anyway, so it would have been a first time for him.
Well, visual effects people hated anamorphic because the lenses had such enormous aberrations that they were unable to duplicate it. Especially in these days, they would just freaked out, I'm sure. You always had the option of Super 35, and so the early CGI movies were all Super 35.
Mm-hmm.
Even when they were widescreen, So, I had shot the tests for Spider-Man 1 with Sam and was unable to do it because I was previously committed to Matrix 2 and 3. But as soon as he asked me to do 2, I said, I really loved Spider-Man 1, but I felt like you guys missed the boat by shooting it in flat. And we talked about Spider-Man and the verticality of it and going through all the canyons and so forth. I said, well, I think what you get from the widescreen is, in terms of a rush, more than pays off for the fact that you can't see the top of the spider web.
Right.
It's just, you can pan and tilt. It'll pay off with scale and scope. So that was my contribution to Spider-Man franchise. There's a lot of two-people stuff going on here. And that was a mechanical... We had to come up with a mechanical door that operated in motion control, a repeatable door, so that he could be the same person twice. The door had to be in the same place, yeah. So some of this is stage, and some of it's Chinatown.
Interrupting a funeral. I never really caught some of these details before. It was just like, it really made a bad day for some people. And then the dissolving mask. Did you film any of the effects, like the melting mask and stuff like that, or was that all done by another crew?
We didn't have a second unit on this. That's what our first unit was supposed to be 65 days, and the second unit was supposed to be 40 days. And Sam and I, we looked at each other and said, we're not getting a second unit. We shot 65 days as the first unit, and then our call sheet said second unit, and we just kept going.
Really?
We called ourselves second unit. we
That's
kept going for
wow, I didn't. That's God. So you really didn't have a second unit?
No.
God,
it's like there's no way you could. How are you going to describe doing a Sam Raimi shot to somebody? You can't do that.
Yeah, that stuff never would have matched.
He's got to be there, and he can't be in two places at once.
No.
In Army of Darkness, he actually did. We would have a unit shooting the day. That would be me, and they have another unit shooting at night, or vice versa. And Sam would make both of them. He has the stamina of a bull. Never seen anybody with that stamina. I don't think he ever slept. Again, that was 119 days. I did 3 movies with Sam, all at 119.
Really?
Yeah.
This is a very memorable sequence. The carnivals where Peyton's inner rage finally comes out.
Yeah. Such a callback and shout out to all the 30s horror
Todd
movies.
Browning's Freaks, yeah.
Yeah. Sam knows knows his stuff and he respects it.
Was there someone else?
No.
I mean, when in doubt, he's going to go for the Three Stooges, but
Of course, yeah.
there's a lot of Todd Brownings running there,
Okay, is that
which is great. We're shooting a Universal picture.
That's true, yeah. There's a tradition being upheld.
Yeah.
Oh, Julie Hastings, I'm gonna win for you the biggest, fuzziest, pinkest animal doll in that rack.
Yes.
And then I gotta run. Sir,
You always have to run. Why does it always have to be so dramatic?
I have my hospital sessions, Jules. I'm not 100% cured yet, but I soon will be.
Where is this place exactly? Pete, I want to be involved somehow. Can I at least take you back there?
No. No, please, Julie. I don't want you to see me there. I don't want you to think of me.
What effect did Darkman have on your career after it came out? Because it was a pretty successful movie when it came out.
Well, it was a curveball. I was just starting to direct commercials, and I had gone into this business to be a DP. That's what I wanted to be, as a DP of movies, and I'd given up. I had gone from music videos to commercials, and it's like I'm never going to get that job. It was just Hollywood was a much more closed down shop then. They did not like to experiment. And Sam called up and just out of the blue offered me a career as a DP. So for me, it was just, a dream come true and a left turn and everything else. My life changed just because I picked up the phone that day. So I owe Barry and I owe Sam and
then
whatever.
you did Barry. Was it Barry who called? Because this is a favorite. It didn't last very long, but you worked on a show, Maximum Bob.
I did, yeah.
And did Barry call you up for that one?
Yeah, I did. I worked secretly for Barry many times. He wanted me to shoot Adam's Family. They wouldn't let me do that. But I did second unit. I came on and finished all the second unit work of that, and finished up a lot of that movie, to be honest with you. And I did the same on several other movies. I'm credited with second unit.
Oh, really?
Just because Barry would go on forever, and the DPs of note would be gone, and I'd finish it up. So we have a long history, the two of us, but it wasn't until Men in Black that we finally got around to actually shooting a full movie from start to finish together.
Was it the first or the third Men in Black?
Third Men in Black, yeah.
Third one, yeah. And then you said you worked with Sam on a movie like this and become well known. Was it because of working with Sam that some other filmmakers would seek you out? Like, for example, Edgar Wright.
Oh, I met Edgar Wright on Sam's set.
Did you really?
He was visiting. This is gone. That set that you saw Liam running across, that's all gone. That was right
now?
Smack in the middle of downtown.
Really?
I think it was Spider-Man 2, and I could be wrong. It might have been Spider-Man 3, but Edgar came by to visit one day. Edgar's really seeks out directors that he admires, and he's a complete cineast. He loves directors. He loves movies, and he's just a lot of fun to be around. And he sought Sam out. He met Sam socially somewhere, and Sam always invites people to come by the set. Edgar came down and visited the set, and Sam said, "This is Edgar Wright, and he's directed." I said, "I know exactly what he's done. He did he did Shaun of the Dead, which I don't even think was out in America yet, but my son had turned me on to it, and I'd seen it. And he said, "You've seen Shaun of the Dead?" I said, "Yeah, absolutely, man. That's a great movie." And I had to go back to work, but Edgar filed that little fact away. And 2 or 3 years later, he called me up and said, "Let's talk about doing a movie together."
And so the first time you worked with him was that Scott Pilgrim?
Scott Pilgrim, yeah.
Yeah.
But I think just because I knew who he was and loved his work when he was still not Edgar Wright, I think he respected that. He knew that I understood his sensibilities.
Your filmography is really driven by special effects, heavy films, sci-fi, fantasy, a little bit of horror. I mean, it's almost not exclusively that, but very much dominated by it. Is that something that has just come about as a result of having worked on so many films like that, or is it something you've really sought out?
Both, really. I like doing it. I told you I love comic books. I love sci-fi. People talk about Game of Thrones. I read all of Game of Thrones first. I'm one of those guys. I read all those books before I.
So the Red Wedding didn't come as a surprise to you.
No, I wouldn't even watch it. I knew it was coming. I was like, I can't watch this. It was hard enough to read it. But because I did this, and because this came so easily to me, after 10 years of doing music videos, I had already done every visual effect that there was. So this was easy to me, or at least knowable. I understood what was going on and understood layering and understood exactly what was required and motion control and all that. So when I came to do this, I just understood it. And because of that, because of this movie, I was offered visual effects movies from then on. I've walked away from it many times. 'Cause there's a point where you get tired of doing anything. You gotta have a breather, and I'm a sucker for a good movie. And it's like I don't really care what it is. If you come to me with the script for Clueless, I go, "That's a great script."
That's right. Yeah, you did. Yeah, with Amy Heckerling. Yeah.
Yeah, or Bound. That's a great script. Who's not going to respond to this thing? But it has nothing to do with visual effects.
You did a great comedy noir with was it Jake Kasdan on Zero Effect?
Zero Effect. And Jake is a very theatrical director where you show up in the morning and work it out and go on. Jake started out directing theater, believe it or not, despite his father's example.
Oh, sure. Well, yeah. And then, when you did The Matrix, that had to be a game changer for you in many ways.
It was, yes, it was a game changer, but not as much as you'd think, to be honest with you. It's impossible to extrapolate that. Here's the blue screen where we turn all the sprinklers on.
Oh, yeah.
Randy made a great set. It's very diabolical.
It feels like an evil businessman's lair,
doesn't it?
It does. It really does. And yeah, I can imagine that. Yeah, since that's all, life size. God, that's an enormous blue screen.
Yeah. You got to get far enough back to throw the sunlight through the window. But The Matrix was just something that we just wanted to do, and we gave it our all. We never felt like anybody was ever going to see it. Who's going to go watch a sci-fi kung fu movie? But because of that, we were free to do whatever we wanted to do. I think the Wachowskis and I all thought that would be our last job. So that was freeing in its own way. And this one too, I had nothing to lose here. We could try anything.
Well, there's got to be a thrill just knowing that there's nothing they can take away from you. So it's just like, why not go for broke?
It's a mental trick. I try to put myself into that position every time I go out. So I try to convince myself, I don't need this job. So then now you're not worried about it anymore.
Robert, I have good news and bad.
Custom dictates that you render the bad news first.
Sam says this all the time. He always, whenever you say, Sam, I got some news for you, he says, well, custom dictates you render the bad news first. That existed before this line existed. These are the lines right out of Sam's mouth. Or Samisms.
No, the good news is that I know who's behind our little troubles of late. When you retrieved my memorandum, you failed to excise the good doctor.
Westlake? He's extinct. I saw to it myself.
He's alive.
So you've always been a fan of comic books, and obviously there's a comic book sensibility at play here, even though it's not based on an existing one. But you did get to obviously do Spider-Man. You're an actual comic book with Spider-Man. Was it difficult working on those films in terms of, okay, there's an existing long visual history with this character. How do I make it my own? Or was it really something where you just went with Sam's take on the character and just kind of rode along with him on it?
It's completely Sam. I mean, the reason why Sam was hired is because he is who he is, and he already is he films a comic book, and he understands it. And he understands the sensibility, this heightened mannerist sensibility with the extreme angles. So I just followed Sam. Camera in a hole so the car can drive over it. This is a great place. It doesn't exist anymore.
Well, I guess you didn't have to worry about doing much damage to the place.
No. We knew they were going to tear it down. It was scheduled for demolition.
Ah.
There were all these oil works downtown. There's all these refineries and stuff.
Working with the gunplay in this, there's a lot of actual practical gunplay. And how had you worked with firearms before? Had you ever done any work with them on any other previous projects?
I would say never to this extent. As a camera assistant, I'd always worked with, in the Corman movies, there's always a firearm around somewhere.
Yeah.
Somebody's always being chased with a knife or a gun. So you're aware of all the safety things. And that's Craig Hoskins flying that helicopter. That's him in the helicopter, actually. He's a really legendary helicopter pilot. He's the guy that auto-rotated down into the Hawaiian volcano when he lost power. I don't know if you remember that whole story.
I've heard something vaguely about it, but no, I don't know. What was that about?
You'll have to look it up. But Craig on this one, Craig kept saying, there he is. He kept saying he could do all these things, and I said, you know what, you got to prove it. And he attached a ballpoint pen to his helicopter, and he wrote his name on a piece of paper on the roof.
Really?
Yeah. I said, all right. Okay, I trust you.
Yeah, there's a guy you want flying the helicopter in your movie. Yeah, that's that. Yeah, for something like this, you want a guy who can actually write his name with his own helicopter.
There's a lot of, you got to put Lexan over the cameras when you're that close to the firing weapons. There's a learning curve of what's going to happen. Sam's always about the maximum visceral impact. So, you're always going to be looking down the barrel. You're always going to be snap zooming.
Oh yeah, the traditional Sam Raimi zoom in.
It's a snap zoom with a Dutch, which is one of the letters.
Yeah.
A snap zoom with a double Dutch is another letter.
Double Dutch.
And a snap back from one Dutch and snap in on the other Dutch is another letter. These are all.
How did you keep all this? I mean, that's amazing. He didn't even keep all that straight.
I just wrote it all down. I just started writing out all of his shots, and I gave him a letter designation. But the most popular one is the B, the quick push in on a dolly. Never, always to give the audience the feeling. There's probably a letter for this too, the extreme up angle.
So did you actually have it for every letter in the alphabet a shot? Mm-hmm. What was the cue?
You know what? I wrote it all on a notebook paper, stapled it together, and gave it to Sam as a joke.
Oh.
And I know he threw it away, and it's like I would love to have that document. But I've always remembered B, just because there's light bulbs going off to do the gun flashes. We'd have light bulbs. We wrap them in gel, set them off. Flash bulbs, old-fashioned flash bulbs with the.
Oh sure. I'm not. It's amazing how much technology has changed in just the past 20 years, and people, it was like a flash bulb.
I still use them.
Still?
They have really long duration flash. Electronic flashes don't have such a long duration, and you always have to deal with the shutter open and close. But a flash bulb has a full second. So you're gonna get it on film. Scott Pilgrim, we must have gone through 10,000 flash bulbs. I felt like I was raping the environment.
Good shooting.
Split screen.
Very effective one because you can see the steam behind both guys. It sells the illusion very well.
I can't remember how we did that. I know we talked about that steam. I cannot remember how we did it. It's a great montage. The fist into the lens. The guy jerking his head back.
Were there ever any mishaps that you can recall on the set? Things that went wrong? I'm certainly hoping no one was hurt at any point. But was there any equipment ever damaged?
No, I can't. Everything was pretty safe. I mean, John Landis is a close friend of Sam's. And tragically, Sam learned from that.
Right. Yeah.
So one of the things he does before he starts basically any shot in which there's any physicality whatsoever, he turns to all his stunt people and says, "You have to assure me that this is absolutely safe. And if it isn't, I'll change it."
Right.
He says, "Is this safe?" That's one of his signature things that he says always. We have helicopters in this thing, and it was filmed shortly after within a year or two of the Twilight Zone accident, and the permits that we had to go through, the clearances we had to go through in order to fly a helicopter around downtown were
Yeah,
enormous.
I can't imagine. Yeah.
We in order to film the sequence where they're hauling Liam through the city. This is the explosion where we had to get the cat out. Here's the shot of the cat.
I don't know if we missed the shot of the cat or not.
I wonder.
Well, let's just say the cat made it.
It's got to be. It can't be apocryphal. It's got to be in there. But anyway, this sequence right here, where no stuntman would go up twice. We put one on there, and we'd put him down, and they'd say, "We're not going up." We'd have to get another stuntman. And just the clearance, we had to have a clearance from every. It took months. In other words, we started getting clearances 6 months before we shot this. Every office of every one of those buildings had to have clearance, had to sign off on it. We had to clear downtown. We had to shoot on a weekend, and downtown had to be cleared. Nobody could be in the street. It was an army of PAs. And
yeah, if you look, there's nobody down there really.
Nobody could be down there. We had to have. There's an entire truck of walkie-talkies. There were hundreds of PAs. Everything had to be closed off. Nobody could walk in the street. Nobody could drive in the street. Clearances from every single human being. And we filmed it over about 3 different weekends. It was harrowing. I mean, I don't even think anybody would even attempt such a thing anymore.
It never occurred to me actually. Because the practicality of just getting all that put together, and the fact that that you actually still could get it done at all, that someone didn't put the kibosh on it at some point.
I just don't think it would be allowed anymore. And we thought, his cape would hold him out straight. It would be a drag, so he's face forward. But no, it didn't work at all. He was constantly spinning around like a madman. That was some sort of rig that we came up with his foot in it. They didn't erase it. This is another off-speed set, which we filmed at 4 frames a second. One POV, of course. And then behind the actor.
Sam's car, the classic, is coming right up here, making its appearance.
Probably 4 frames a second here.
There it is.
There it is, the classic.
Has to be in there somewhere.
All of which was just filmed, The helicopter's just sitting on a roof someplace, and we're dollying back and forth and dutching and blowing air. And
yeah, but you got real charges going off on this bridge here. I mean, this is...
Yeah.
I now that you talk about it, it's just really the fact that you were able to pull this off with the money that you had and the time that you had.
Well, helicopters flying over the top, I just don't think they'd allow such thing anymore. This is obviously not moving at all. That may have been moving. It may have been a car-to-car. Yeah, it's a car-to-car moving shot with a stuntman. Chris Doyle, probably.
Boom.
And I think we hauled a helicopter into that wall and dropped it. This isn't optical.
But the actual point of impact was actually...
I think we did. I think we drove a helicopter, a mock-up helicopter into that wall and set it on fire and dropped it.
It wouldn't even have occurred to me that you actually did that. I would have always assumed that was a special effect, because how do you get clearance? Oh, we're just going to drive a helicopter into that overpass. Hope you don't mind.
This set was built on... This is a real building under construction downtown. It's still there. And we do all these shots at the real building. He's like a cockroach. But the set, the high steel, we call it, or as Sam would call it, high steel. We built
that was all a blue screen background.
No blue screen. We built
no blue screen, really?
a 200-foot long translite, and we went on to a aircraft hangar out at Van Nuys Airport and built a 3-story high steel structure. We welded it all together. It was high steel. We walked on it, and we shot on it. We all learned to walk on 9-inch steel. Nothing really special about it. We became high steel workers. And there were stunt pads. This is the set right here.
Oh, okay.
So we're walking on those little beams with some occasional pieces of, plywood in between.
Right.
And we filmed on those things. We put up a plywood set. That's Bill Mesa's stuff right there.
Oh,
You're talking
okay.
about. This stuff right here.
Oh, okay.
We shot this at Innovision. So that would be a model, front screen projected onto the actors walking around on Bill Mesa's Scotch Light screen. Super cheap. It's like that's in camera, but with the once you leave Colin, you're talking about a model.
Right.
All shot before we got there, and then what we shoot fits into it. High steel.
It's amazing the amount of in that brief 60 seconds, all the different techniques that were utilized. The rear projection, model shots, practical compositing, practical. I mean, it's
The bad
people-
guy. The bad guy is that's holding Fran is Chris Doyle. He's the stunt man who you saw. Whenever Liam's supposed to be doing something bad, that's Chris Doyle doing it, and he's in the movie.
This is a
Yeah,
great
here's-
shot where you pan up and
Yeah, this is Bill Mesa at work. It's Ray Harryhausen come to life.
What was the most difficult? Would you say working here or the helicopter? What was the most difficult sequence in this film for you to photograph?
Well, this is the most elaborate. This was a couple of weeks of being on high steel. Colin fell off, broke his leg. Came
Really?
back, got himself shot up at the hospital. Came back with his leg in traction and finished the fight scene that day. That's a very
dedication.
Australian viewpoint. I fell off the high steel. I fell 2 stories in the middle of the night and fell 2 stories and fell on my back in the on the pads. You're walking around high steel. You're not paying attention. And we finished the shot, and I turned around and said, "All right, we'll move on to the next shot." And I just stepped off and nothing.
Oh, jeez.
And it's like, oh boy, I hope there's pads down there.
Yeah, that would be my first thought. I hope there's something to break my fall down there. Here comes one of Bruce's screams coming up when he falls off.
And you can tell the woodenness of that beam.
Oh yeah, it's bending a little bit more than a steel beam would be.
Yeah.
But what are you gonna do?
There's also a scene. I can't remember how I did this. This is obviously just Fran up against the
Rear
front screen projection. All this is front screen projection, but the extreme angle. So your screens are set up down on the floor. You're up in the air, built up, looking down at the screens. That's probably the translate, actually. There's a sequence in here where there's a shot in here where Liam swings toward Colin and impacts him, and I got in a metal cage, and we attached it by a rope to the ceiling of the stage, and we let go of the cage, and I just swung at the actor with a handheld camera, and I didn't realize what I was doing until the very end when we had a rope that stopped me just shy of the actor's face, and on the way there I was like, what's going to stop me inside this cage? And of course nothing. I impacted the cage. I was covered with cage-shaped black and blue marks for weeks after that.
Oh man.
No, none of this stuff would be allowed today.
No, the more you talk about this, it's like, I don't think they'd let you do any of this anymore.
None of this would be filmable.
It's like,
Just letting the actors walk around on 9-inch steel. There's no safety. There's just pads underneath them.
the little shots of the nails are reminiscent of the eyeball shot from Evil Dead 2, the classic
Yeah.
Just
Eyeball, fly ball shot. As Sam called it.
eyeball, fly ball. That's right.
He has them all labeled. I just tried to continue the labeling. Going into him. See, that was a whole sequence inside his head. All gone.
Oh wow.
Or he gets in touch with his anger. You see the source of his anger. And you see the craziness of the rubber rebar going on there.
And here's this scene where he swings down.
He grabs her, puts her on something, sits her on something safe, and I think he swings back. Now I got some work to do.
So
This is where I got my... This is the shot. Dink.
How involved were you in the post-production process? Because sometimes DPs have to move on to the next thing, or they're not present. How long were you there to color time the film, oversee it?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. You had to. Color timing in those days was a long process. You didn't do DIs. It was laborious, shot by shot.
Yeah.
But all this was figured out first before we got there. So, and we weren't. This is a straightforward looking film. It's controlled on the set, so the colors and the lighting are all what it looks like. We didn't process the film oddly or anything. We didn't.
Mm-hmm.
There's no manipulation of things. This is straightforward. 52-48, I want to say. It might have been 47.
So if anything, it would just have been a matter of some shots being a little darker, lighter in post, just making some adjustments.
Yeah, they pop up anyway. It could be green, red.
Right.
Whatever. You're just adjusting the color and adjusting the brightness. Very simple stuff. You didn't have windows or sophisticated manipulation like you got now.
When the film came out, it was actually, even though Universal had a lot of obviously changes and it wasn't easy for Sam in a lot of ways, the final, the What Is Darkman ad campaign was very, very successful, and
it's copied all the time, isn't it?
I thought it was great too, and it was really created an air of mystery in the movie, and it opened at #1, and even generated a couple sequels down the road. I mean, were you with the final film? Were you happy with how it all turned out?
I loved it. I love the movie. It's it's hard for me to watch any movie that I worked on because I have to go through the part where I see all the mistakes. But this movie is so long ago I can't remember, so I just sit back and enjoy it. I'll typically wait 4 or 5 years before I'll see a movie. But it's such a pleasure to watch these actors work. They've gone on to such great heights.
Well, yeah, this was your first film, but in a way it certainly has set the tone for the films that you've done since. You've the comic book sensibility of this film lent itself very well to many of the films that you would do later on. And the working with Sam ended up being something that other filmmakers would recognize you for and seek you out for. Great little Captain Kirk light.
Yeah, that was a B move.
A B move?
Yeah, on Fran. Where he turns into Bruce somewhere.
Yep. This is my favorite Bruce cameo of all time. Because he had to be in the movie somewhere. And for him to be the last incarnation of Darkman that we see.
This is one location.
So that's not this was a completely different area.
And this is a different location.
Oh, okay.
Look at the young, handsome Bruce.
And with that comes to a
that was supposed to be the sequel, so Bruce could star in the sequel.
Yeah. Were you ever? I mean, obviously those were meant to be direct to video. So were you even approached about doing the sequels?
No. I mean, at one point there was talk about. I mean, if Darkman had been super successful, there would have been another Darkman, and it would have been starring Bruce Campbell as Darkman.
Ah,
that was what Sam was trying to set up. It wasn't thought at the time that they were going to be direct-to-video things.
Right.
It was hoped that there would be bigger and better things.
So looking back on this experience and the place it has in your life and career, do you have any closing comments about working on Darkman and your first collaboration with Sam Raimi?
I couldn't have started better. I was literally the phone call from Sam was one of the luckiest days of my life. Honestly, it changed my life for the better for me. It gave me a chance to do what I always wanted to do. I met somebody whose sensibilities I completely understood and gelled with. You know, I don't know. Really, it's a great lucky day. I can't say enough good things about it. I'm a lucky man, and you're looking at the beginning of the luck.
Well, Bill, thank you so much for your time today, and thank you for sharing so many great stories about the making of Darkman. And to everyone out there, thank you for listening, and we'll see you on the next track. Thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot. Thanks, Michael.